Welcome back to the channel. We'll tell a hunting story today from when I was my first year in Iowa at the hunting ranch I worked on up there. And you've probably seen this picture on the internet. It's showed up, it comes up sometimes once a year. I've seen Jim Shockey post it, I've seen Woods and Water post it. I'm the one that took that picture. And here's the story of how that happened. This was my first year. This was during my first year as a hunting guide there in Iowa. And there was a big deer running around out there. I remember that I won't ever forget the first time I saw him. It was right after I got there, and I went to sit with one of the guides that was there. He worked there full time. We went and sat in this one blind that this deer was known to be seen at. It was actually harvested out of that blind. And I remember this deer walking out, and he came out right by the blind, and I can't remember, I don't think he was in velvet. He comes out, and he was so big, his frame was so big, when he picked his head up, his whole head would shake, and he'd hold it there. And he's steady in his head. But I think that was the first time that year we'd seen him. They'd seen him the year before I started working there, and he was pretty big when he was a 3-year-old, and we hunted him as a 4-year-old. Well, I guess people probably saw him off and on during the management season when we go out and shoot the deer under 160. And trophy season came along, and we were like, everybody wanted a shot at this deer. And all the clients knew this deer was there. Everybody knew about him. He was a big deer. He's really big. Well, I got, they assign you a client and everything, and then we drew cards to see who picked first. So the client would pick the card, and then you get to write down the order. And so the way it went was the person that picked the ace got to pick first, and then down cards, and then down to like 8 or 9 or whatever, however many clients were there. And 9 goes up to 1 the next day, and 1 goes down to 2, and so on. It's just a rotation there. So the first day, I can't remember where we picked, but it was down the list, or down the card. So the first night, that particular property where that deer was, everybody was, I don't think there was an empty stand over there. And I was picked 8 or 9, somewhere around down at the bottom, down to where I was second to last that first night, and the second, or the last pick, the second, or the next morning, and I was going to be the first pick that night, the second night. So we went out, and I picked, and I said, well, shoot, there's one stand left over there. We hadn't ever seen him at that stand, but who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky. Let's go sit at that stand. And we went out there, and we didn't see much. No one saw him that first night. So the next morning, go and pick, and one of the other new guys was there, and he got to pick first. He went and picked the blind where I sat and saw him. And I was last pick, and it was pretty solid over there. And I was like, well, if it doesn't happen this morning, we got first pick tonight. We're going in there, and we'll see what happens. So we went out that morning, and picked his blind on the main ranch, and said, let's go out here and see what happens. Well, somewhere during the morning, we were sitting there, we sat and we were seeing a lot of deer, and I saw this good deer bed up behind the blind. I just happened to catch him walking around over there. He'd stand up every once in a while, and I'd see him sit down, lay back down. He's bedding up in some switchgrass back there. And I can't remember if someone came over the radio or got a text from the guide or what, but somehow we'd found out that deer had been harvested. And like, okay. Well, we sat there and waited, and I was hoping that deer would come in, and he never did. So I was like, I finally looked at my client. I said, hey, it's a chance. The wind's right. Let's see if we can get close enough to this deer that's back behind the blind. Since he's in the switchgrass and laying down, maybe we can get close enough that we can get to him. He's over 200 inches. I think he was right around 212. So we get out of the blind. We go across the little road that's behind the blind. And we get down. And we're crawling. We're belly crawling. We crawl up. I think we crawled up within, and there was a road right there. It wasn't really a road. It was just a place where we'd cut through the switchgrass. And we belly crawled up there, and got about 40 yards. And the client was sitting there, and he was ready. And I sitting there, and I stood up, and I was just tall enough, being that I'm 6'4", that I could see over the switchgrass, and I could see him in that switchgrass laying there. So we sat there, and he didn't move, didn't stand up, and we had a shooting lane, and I got the client to stand up, and got it on some shooting sticks, and I grunted, and the deer stood up. When he stood up, client dropped him in his tracks. And like, okay, cool. So we got this deer at the time, and it might still be. At the time, it was the biggest deer that I'd ever guided on. So I had, I've got it on several over 200 since then. But I think that's the highest scoring one that I ever got it on. Went over, took the pictures and everything, and put him in the back of the truck, took him up to the, I had to drive by where we clean the deer at to get back to the lodge, and I was like, and we always take the deer back to the lodge so everybody can see them. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pull up in here and I'm gonna clean this deer real fast, clean him up, and then we'll drive up to the lodge and eat lunch. And told the client, you mind waiting around while I do that? It'll take you 15 minutes or so. And he's like, no, let's do it. So we pulled in there, and I started backing up and back the truck up. Ranch manager's in there cleaning that deer, big deer. If you can't call 200 a big deer, but whatever, he was a big deer. So we pack up in there, and the ranch manager's cleaning the deer. And I was like, okay, so we're looking at it, and it's big, it's a once in a lifetime deer. And we're looking at it, and he's like, what are y'all doing here? And you just stop by his house. I said, no, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this deer and then head up to the lodge since we're already over by here. And it's, that time of day anyway that everybody starts bringing stuff up. And he's like, I'm already dirty. Just throw it over here. Let's pull it out and we'll get it done real quick. So we pull the deer out, we hang it up, we clean it, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so wash it out, everything, get it, throw it in the back of the truck. And the ranch manager looks at me and says, just throw the other one in the back of the truck, take it up there too, so we don't have to bring back the other truck in here. Just put it in there with yours. And I was like, no. And he's like, no, just do it, Ronnie, just do it. I was like, okay, whatever. So we picked the deer up, and we threw it in the back, closed the tailgate, and he took off before we put it in there. And we got back and we drove on down to the lodge. And there was a reason why I didn't want this deer in there. And it's that picture. I mean, not that picture, but the fact of what was sitting next to it. So we get back to the lodge, and we always back the trucks in, lower the tailgates when you have something, so everybody, all the other clients and everybody that works there can come out and look at them and take pictures if they want to or whatever. So I back up there and I pull back and get the first spot there and drop the tailgate and pull them out, and that's when we all started looking at it. Well, that deer, that big deer that you see in that picture, and all the ones that I've shown, he scored 229 typical. He's, at the time, I hadn't looked, but at the time he was Safari Club #1 whitetail typical deer. He was 239 non-typical, but his typical was 229, so he was #1. And he's sitting next to a deer that's 212. That's a really good deer, but he makes that 212 look small, and that's why I didn't want him in the back of my truck. And the ranch manager comes out and sees them sitting side by side, and he looks at me and he says, "Now I know why you were saying no." that makes him look small, but he was a good deer. So I took pictures of him, and then the guy that one of the other guys took pictures of him with him, and then we took my camera and basically did it, and he sent the pictures to another guy that got it up there the year before, and then got it up there later. And which is funny, he grew up 30 minutes from me, and we didn't meet each other until we were up there. But he sent it to him, and next thing you know, this thing's all over the internet. And then the picture of them side by side in the back of my truck starts going around the internet too. And from time to time it pops up again, like I said, and my brother usually, when he sees it, will comment, "Yeah, that's my brother's truck. Yeah, that was it. That happened at this time." He'll throw it in the comments or whatever when he sees it on Facebook or wherever. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And someone always sends it to me whenever that knows the story. They'll say, "Oh, they'll see it and they'll tag me in it or something," because they know it's my truck. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It'd been awesome to be the guy that got that one, but it's just not how the cards fell. But we ended up getting a big deer, and actually I think we got another one after that. Later that week we got another one. So, and I guided that guy again the next year, and we shot another 200 the next year. So with that was one client, I shot a 212, like a 210, and a 198 in 2 years with him. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's the story of the deer picture that says, "Hey honey, I went out to get the groceries," or something like that. But yeah, that was my truck. That was in 2006, and it was a pretty cool hunt. The belly crawling, that was a fun hunt. That's all I got for this round. If you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll catch y'all next time. Thanks for watching.